Hello, I'm Narcissa Melissa Lawton, and the Lawtons are a very important family in Oviedo. My children, my grandchildren, even some of my great-grandchildren have made Oviedo their home. There are now more descendants of the Lawton family in this town than any other family. I was born in Georgia in 1817, and more than 200 years passed. I was buried right here in Oviedo in 1883. And it was the custom to be buried with our feet to the east and our head to the west. We were ready to greet the Lord when he came on Judgment Day, and we would leap to our feet. If you go to the Oviedo Cemetery, you'll see that my gravestone is being pushed aside by a very big tree. The seedling of that tree was planted next to the headstone, which was the tradition at that time. That tree has grown a lot in the last 140 years. And I suspect that my bones are all wrapped up in the roots of that tree. For the first half of my life, I lived in Georgia on a plantation. My husband was A.B. Lawton, and we owned 60 slaves. When the Civil War broke out and my husband died, I was a widow with 7 children. My 2 sons joined the Confederate Army, and I was left with only my son Robert at age 15 to help me provide for the family. I was left to run the plantation, feed and clothe everyone. My only solace was the Lord, and each day of a struggle, I wrote a prayer in my diary. I find my cares in this life press heavily on me. After the war, the plantation was ruined. When my 2 sons returned, we decided we better move away. And so we came south to a place called Oviedo. Back then it was called the Lake Jessup Community, which was the first name that this place had. We came to start a new life after the cares of the war. When we arrived, there were less than 250 people living in this area. The men worked setting the citrus groves, and the women cooked, made their own clothes, and washed the clothes in a tub outside over an open fire. Of course, they also tended a garden to have food. The girls helped with the household chores. The boys went hunting for food, and oftentimes they'd come back with a deer. My son Tom had a store, and in a place that he called Lawtonville section of town. Robert and Alex homesteaded, and citrus, of course, was the main crop. My daughter Lona married Andrew Allen, who gave Oviedo its name. He chose a Spanish name, as our state had a Spanish name, Florida. So he chose the name Oviedo as the name of our town. He also had a street named after him, Allen Avenue, which is just down off of Broadway. My daughter Clara married John T. Wheeler. They were homesteaders here too, but later they were owners of a citrus packing house, which was really important in a citrus growing town. My stepdaughter Martha married Walter Ginn, and they moved to Lake Charm. There's Walter and Martha. My son Robert was called to become a preacher. He became the pastor of the Orange Grove Baptist Church, the first church in town. He called it, or you would call it today, the First Baptist Church of Oviedo. He was so dedicated that he would walk from Oviedo to Fort Christmas once a month to share the word of the Lord with the people in Christmas. Eventually, they wanted to take some of the trouble for him, so they decided to put their money together, $60, and bought him a horse. He used that horse to preach in Geneva, in Chuliota, in Longwood, in Christmas, and of course in Oviedo. He was a true circuit pastor. Life was hard for children in those days. There were a lot of fevers and other diseases going around, and they were very sensitive to it. But I had fine grandchildren, great-grandchildren. My grandson Thomas Willingham Lawton, whose picture is here, was one of the first graduates of Rollins College. He married one of James Hiram Lee's daughters. James's daughters are pictured here, sitting on the front porch. Her name was Carlotta Lee, and when she married, they nicknamed her Lottie Lee Lawton. Thomas Willingham Lawton was the first elected superintendent of schools in Seminole County. He held that position for 35 years, which is the longest superintendent in Seminole County's history. All these marriages among all the first families of Oviedo means that lots of folks living here are related to me. Lees, Wheelers, Allens, Gwens, all are my blood kin. I'm not sure what I died of at 62 years of age. It was a long time ago. I lived through a lot of hard times, a lot of desolation, and I moved to Oviedo, where I found the new life that I was praying for. Thank you.